Welcome back to another edition of Quick Picks with Just Facts Combat. This week, we have another card in Mexico City, which raises the question, how will the judges score these fights? Historically, wrestling, grappling, and defensive fighting aren't highly valued in Mexico, and aggression often wins favor. If a fighter isn't pushing forward, they may struggle to get the nod unless they secure a finish, even if they were technically more effective. Ironically, the card kicks off with two of the least aggressive fighters on the lineup. Marquel Mederos versus Hubbard, a matchup that feels more like a domestic-level affair. Prediction: I'm siding with the underdog, Hubbard. Mederos is essentially a younger, less experienced version of Hubbard, similar fighting style, same mistakes, and comparable strengths. The key difference? Hubbard has faced better competition and refined his game more. I expect Hubbard to be the one pressing forward, even though it's not his natural style. Mederos will likely try to counter and match that aggression, leading to an exchange-heavy fight with shaky defense on both sides. Expect a mix of striking and prolonged clinch battles against the fence, as both fighters like to grind opponents down in those positions. Final pick: Hubbard by decision. This should be an exciting clash between two grapplers with solid striking. Emmers boasts high-level wrestling, while Miranda's biggest weapon is his jiu-jitsu. Both carry respectable power on the feet, but the key difference here is durability. Miranda's chin and body seem suspect, whereas Emmers has proven to be much tougher than he appears. This could be the deciding factor, as otherwise, they're equally dangerous in all areas. Miranda is too hittable, and Emmers is sharp enough to capitalize. Gabriel's pressure may give Emmers trouble early, but I expect him to slow down after the first round. Emmers will likely use that aggression against him, forcing fatigue to set in. He'll take his time, pick Miranda apart, and mix in wrestling to put him in bad spots when he tries to force grappling exchanges. Wherever the fight goes, Emmers has the answers. I see him breaking Miranda down en route to a finish. Final pick: Jamall Emmers via TKO or dominant decision. To be honest, I'm not confident in this pick. Rafa Garcia has weaknesses that Pichel could exploit, so while I'm siding with him, I'll explain my hesitation. Garcia struggles against constant pressure and is far more effective at a slower, technical pace. I can see Pichel's forward movement causing him problems early, using his striking to disrupt Rafa and then timing takedowns when Garcia tries to counter. Given Pichel's durability, a finish seems unlikely for Rafa, who has power but doesn't push the kind of pace needed to put him away. We've seen Garcia get overwhelmed before, most notably in his loss to Chris Gruetzemacher. That said, I'm still leaning toward Garcia by decision. Pichel is 42, and while he's in great shape, how long can he keep up with younger competition? If he's the aggressor here, his cardio may be tested, especially if he keeps walking into shots. Garcia is comfortable fighting off the back foot and may be able to pick him apart as Pichel slows down. Pichel also doesn't consistently stick to a wrestling-heavy game plan despite his solid takedown stats. Even if he scores a takedown or two, I see Garcia being too fast on the feet, landing clean shots, and stuffing some of Pichel's attempts as the fight progresses. Final pick: Rafa Garcia via decision. However, Pichel is a live underdog with the experience to make adjustments, so his upset potential shouldn't be overlooked. With the only women's fight on the card, guess what's probably not happening? That's right, a finish. This fight has decision written all over it, but it should still be an entertaining matchup. Polastri is physically strong for the division, and it shows in her aggression and ability to make opponents respect her power. However, she has noticeable defensive flaws that Loopy can exploit, most notably, keeping her chin high after throwing strikes. Loopy's counter-striking is elite, and I can see her capitalizing on that mistake. Additionally, while Polastri is a solid grappler, she can be overly aggressive in scrambles, which plays into Loopy's strength as a counter-offensive fighter who thrives on punishing mistakes. This makes for an exciting back-and-forth battle rather than just a standard pressure versus counterfight. Loopy's ability to control range and lure Polastri into bad exchanges will be key. Polastri's Muay Thai stance keeps her square, and her tendency to rely on toughness over tight defense could work against her. If she leaves her hips open during striking exchanges, Loopy could take her down and rack up control time. That said, Loopy has her own flaws, which make this fight interesting. She sometimes lingers in the pocket even when she's not attacking, trying to bait counters, something Polastri can take advantage of. Another notable habit of Loopy's is her tendency to catch flying knees rather than avoid them, sometimes even absorbing the strike to initiate grappling. Coincidentally, Polastri loves using flying knees to close the distance, which could lead to a fight-altering moment if she lands clean. However, overall, I'm siding with Loopy. She is better at executing her game plan than Polastri is at making her aggression work. She also has the footwork to avoid getting trapped against the fence, which is crucial since Polastri prefers to set up takedowns from that position. If this remains a striking match, Loopy should land the cleaner, more effective shots and outpoint Polastri on the scorecards. It also helps that the fight is in Mexico, where Loopy, a Mexican fighter who trains locally, will have a massive home field advantage, something we've seen influence judges in the past. Final prediction: Loopy Godinez by decision. The UFC might be giving Christian Rodríguez a chance to correct the mistakes that cost him against Julian Erosa while also rewarding Costa with the quick turnaround he wanted. However, this may be too big of a challenge for Costa, considering he just fought a month ago. Yes, he finished Andre Fili early and took no damage, but C-Rod is a highly respected prospect, and a 1-month camp, including another weight cut, might not be enough. That said, Costa does have an opportunity to exploit a weakness. Rodríguez was submitted by Erosa after being too relaxed on top and failing to respect the danger of a guillotine. Coincidentally, the exact same mistake Fili made before Costa submitted him. If Rodríguez hasn't learned from that, Costa could catch him the same way. However, I doubt Rodríguez makes that mistake again. He seems self-aware enough to correct it, and I expect him to be more cautious on the ground. Costa's jiu-jitsu is dangerous and well-rounded, so he could cause problems if the fight hits the mat, but Rodríguez will likely use his wrestling to minimize Costa's offense or stand back up to avoid unnecessary risks. On the feet, both are primarily counter-strikers, so expect long periods of reading and feinting. Rodríguez has excellent boxing, particularly his jab, which he uses to set up his offense. Costa's best chance on the feet is using his reach, kicks, and length to keep Rodríguez at bay. However, I believe Rodríguez will find his way inside, slowly breaking Costa down and forcing him into uncomfortable exchanges. Rodríguez will likely avoid grappling unless he's in a clear position to control Costa. Given his patient and calculated approach, I see him sticking to his striking and doing enough to win on the scorecards. Final prediction: Christian Rodríguez via decision. It's pretty clear why the UFC made this fight. They want to test the limits of Jose Medina's toughness, and they've given him the ultimate challenge in Ateba Gautier. Gautier is a heavily muscled, heavy-handed finisher with an 80% KO/TKO rate. While still raw, he has real potential. This is a dangerous fight for Medina, but winnable if he uses his toughness strategically instead of just absorbing damage. Gautier's fights rarely go past the first round, with only 3 ever reaching later rounds. He lost one due to fatigue, which is a common issue for someone his size. If Medina can weather the early storm and secure a takedown, preferably in open space, as Gautier has shown the ability to get back up against the cage, he has a real shot at pulling off a major upset. However, Medina's biggest flaw is his passivity. He often seems content to be a punching bag, taunting opponents while offering little offense. That approach will likely get him knocked out against Gautier. Fighting in bursts when Gautier slows down won't be enough. If Medina hasn't made adjustments, he won't survive the beating long enough to capitalize. This fight feels like a UFC litmus test. Either Medina proves he's more than just tough, or he confirms he lacks the offensive skills to stick around. Given that he's on a 2-fight skid and was recently finished, a 3rd straight loss could mean the end of his UFC run. Final prediction: Ateba Gautier by TKO, round 1 or 2. Mexico City is going to love this fight, with hometown favorite Édgar Cháirez taking on fellow South American CJ Vergara in what promises to be a striking fan's delight. Both pack respectable power and prefer to stand and trade, though Cháirez also possesses a dangerous grappling game, with many of his finishes coming via submission. Still, expect a high-paced striking battle. I anticipate a measured first round, with both feeling each other out at range while engaging in brief pocket exchanges. Once they've gathered their reads, the action should ramp up, with both letting their hands go. The key difference in this fight will be in the pocket. Both have questionable defense, but Cháirez has the better chin and more tools, including his grappling. If Vergara gets too comfortable striking without accounting for takedowns, Cháirez could catch him off guard. A major concern for Vergara is his habit of dropping his hands in the pocket, relying solely on distance for defense, an odd mistake considering he's often the shorter fighter. He paid for this against Emmers, who caught him clean and finished him, and if he hasn't tightened up this flaw, Cháirez could capitalize in a similar way. I see Cháirez clipping Vergara as he exits the pocket, leading to either a submission or a stoppage. That said, Cháirez's aggression could also work against him if he rushes in recklessly and eats a counter. But based on their skill sets, styles, and weaknesses, I see Cháirez as the stronger pick. Final prediction: Édgar Cháirez by decision, though a submission finish is very possible. This is an exciting back-and-forth matchup between the all-action Mexican, Ronaldo Rodríguez, and the skilled backfoot fighter, Kevin Borjas, who knows when to press forward and match his opponent's aggression. Given their styles, expect plenty of inside fighting and a potential fight of the night contender. Rodríguez has incredible heart, as seen in his war against Osborne, where he survived being rocked, dropped, and nearly submitted for 2 minutes before rallying back to a razor-close decision. However, heart alone won't win this fight. While Rodríguez is a skilled striker with solid grappling, his defense is a major liability. He often relies on offense as defense, and when that fails, he absorbs big shots, just like he did against Osborne. Borjas, on the other hand, pushed top prospect Joshua Van to the limit in a hard-fought battle. He's a sharper counterstriker than Osborne and carries real finishing power. Rodríguez's aggressive, often telegraphed swings will leave him open to heavy counters. If he doesn't mix in grappling, I see Borjas punishing him and likely dropping him early. Both are fast starters, so I don't expect a feeling out process. While the odds may not reflect how close this fight is, I'm siding with Borjas to capitalize on Rodríguez's defensive flaws and secure the win. Final prediction: Kevin Borjas by TKO, round 1 or 2, or decision. This is a classic pressure versus back foot fighter matchup. In today's combat sports climate, front foot aggression often sways judges since many casual fans perceive back foot fighting as running. However, I'm siding with the back foot fighter, Martinez. Oliveira hasn't fought in over 2 years and relies on a cardio-taxing style, throwing heavy power shots and pressing forward to set up his grappling. That approach plays into Martinez's strengths. He'll look to chop Oliveira's legs, use his aggression against him, and land counters. I see Martinez systematically breaking him down and potentially finishing him in the later rounds. Final prediction: David Martinez by TKO, round 2 or 3, or decision. This fight will be a strong test of Rose's maturity and fight IQ. While Morales is primarily a counterstriker, he's effective in that role and could cause problems if Roses is overly aggressive. However, Rose's only loss came from being too reckless, and since then, he's shown a more measured approach. I expect Roses to be aggressive but controlled, a style that Morales struggles to counter when executed properly. By blending his striking with wrestling, Roses can dictate the pace and outwork Morales without overextending and gassing out. Final prediction: Raul Rosas Jr. via decision or submission. A power-packed slugfest is exactly what a Mexico City card needs, and this fight delivers. Both men have fight-ending power, but skill-wise, it's also a compelling matchup. Kelvin's wrestling and pace could pose problems for Piper, while Piper has solid grappling himself with a few submission wins. However, both prefer striking and hunt for knockouts, so expect an explosive scrap that likely won't see the final bell. I predict that fighter to fall will be Kelvin Gastelum. Since his return, he hasn't shown much improvement from the issues that led to his previous losses. He's still an undersized middleweight with a great chin and power, but I see him getting outmatched in the power department here. Piper has steadily improved since his last loss, and this fight serves as a key test for his middleweight potential. Piper's shot selection should expose Kelvin's poor striking defense, and I expect him to eventually land the shot that puts Kelvin away. That said, he'll need to be cautious. Kelvin is most dangerous when hurt. If Piper respects his power, which he likely will, he'll take his time and systematically break him down before securing the finish in the second or third round. The first round should be more measured, with both men feeling each other out, but once they start exchanging, expect fireworks. If Kelvin survives, I see Piper using his reach and size to control the fight, keeping him on the back foot and limiting his counters. Final pick: Joe Piper via TKO or decision. This fight will be a strong test of Rose's maturity and fight IQ. While Morales is primarily a counterstriker, he's effective in that role and could cause problems if Roses is overly aggressive. However, Rose's only loss came from being too reckless, and since then, he's shown a more measured approach. I expect Roses to be aggressive but controlled, a style that Morales struggles to counter when executed properly. By blending his striking with wrestling, Roses can dictate the pace and outwork Morales without overextending and gassing out. Final prediction: Raul Rosas Jr. via decision or submission. Let's be real, neither of these guys has great defense. They rely so much on their power that defense feels like an afterthought. When two all-offense fighters stand and trade, someone is bound to go down. While I expect them to respect each other's power early on, a finish seems inevitable. Torres will likely come out boxing, pressing Dober back and being the aggressor. Dober, expecting this, will either hold his ground and swing big or try to time Torres on the way in. If Torres stays patient, manages range, and uses feints to draw out Dober's wild power shots, he has the cleaner hands and a better chance of landing first. Dober's path to victory? Getting past Torres' jab and capitalizing on his tendency to keep his chin high. While Dober has wrestling, it's overrated and rarely used since he trusts his striking. His stiff, hittable style plays into Torres' strengths. I see Torres controlling the exchanges and eventually landing the KO shot. Final prediction: Manuel Torres via TKO or decision. This fight will be a strong test of Rosa's maturity and fight IQ. While Morales is primarily a counter-striker, he's effective in that role and could cause problems if Rosas is overly aggressive. However, Rosa's only loss came from being too reckless, and since then, he's shown a more measured approach. I expect Rosas to be aggressive but controlled, a style that Morales struggles to counter when executed properly. By blending his striking with wrestling, Rosas can dictate the pace and outwork Morales without overextending and gassing out. Final prediction: Raul Rosas Jr. via decision or submission. Main event time: Brandon Moreno takes on Steve Ersak in a fascinating clash of styles. Ersak's range control, particularly in the mid-range, could pose problems for Moreno, who often keeps a high guard, leaving his chin open to uppercuts. Ersak is highly accurate in this range, arguably more technically refined than Royval, who defeated Moreno by using range and aggression to pick him apart. That said, I expect Moreno to ramp up the pressure and mix in his wrestling if Ersak finds success on the feet. Moreno typically grapples to slow down opponents, but Ersak's solid takedown defense and ability to get back up will make it tough to keep him on the mat. Still, Moreno has the tools to wear him down in striking exchanges. This will be a close fight, and Moreno will need to fight with urgency, something he seemed to learn after the Royval bout, where he lacked finishing intent. Final prediction: Brandon Moreno via decision or TKO. However, Ersak has all the tools to pull off an upset, but Moreno's ability to adapt is what makes the difference. Final prediction: Raul Rosas Jr. via decision or submission.